If you're watching this video, chances are you're feeling something many people can't quite put into words. A constant unease, a tightness in your chest, a quiet but persistent sense that something just isn't right. You can't explain it, but it lingers. Maybe you feel stuck, unsure of why you're anxious, overwhelmed, or drained. Or maybe it's the emptiness, that hollow feeling that follows you no matter what you try to do to fill it. He knows that place well, the one where thoughts spiral endlessly and fear becomes a constant companion. It used to leave him anxious, without direction, like life was spinning out of control, detached from meaning. If that's where you are right now, you're not alone. This video isn't here to give you shallow advice or feel-good solutions. It's not a just think positive message. It's about something deeper, a way to face what you're feeling with honesty, with truth, and with both spiritual and scientific clarity. Because real change doesn't come from outside. It starts within. And sometimes all we need is a new direction.
The fear that paralyzes. Fear is a tricky thing, and often it holds us back in ways we don't even realize. He began to notice how his mind was always on high alert, like it was constantly bracing for something to go wrong. It turns out that's not just mental, it's physical too. When the body senses fear or anxiety, it releases cortisol, the stress hormone. Over time, chronic stress doesn't just affect emotions. It weakens the immune system, drains energy, and clouds the ability to make clear decisions. But there's more to it. The brain, overexposed to stress, can become addicted to that heightened state. The heart races, thoughts speed up, and suddenly, that constant state of alert feels normal. The body gets stuck in survival mode. This is where many people get trapped. They stop noticing the toll it's taking. Fear no longer warns them, it defines them. And they begin to believe that anxiety is simply who they are. But what if that's not true? What if the brain could be trained not to react in fear, but to rest in calm, to choose courage over panic? He asked himself, what if peace is not something you wait for, but something you practice?
The cycle of external validation. From an early age, he was taught, like most of us, to seek approval. At school, at home, online, the message was always the same. If they like you, you matter. And for a while, he believed it. Every compliment, every like, every nod of approval, it felt good. It gave him a sense of value. But the feeling never lasted. The high faded, and what was left was that same emptiness. There's science behind this. The brain releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical, when we receive validation. But this kind of dopamine is short-lived. It's the fast kind, phasic dopamine. It gives a quick hit of pleasure, and then it's gone. The problem? The more he chased it, the more he craved it. It became a cycle. Do something, get approval, feel good briefly, then repeat. But there's another kind of dopamine, one that builds slowly and lasts longer. It's called tonic dopamine. It comes from deeper actions, living by your values, pursuing meaningful goals, staying true to who you are even when no one's watching. He began to realize peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from knowing who you are. Confidence isn't built in the spotlight. It's formed in silence, in conviction. Validation from others, that's a cage. Living by purpose, that's freedom.
The spiritual shift. Fearing God, not people. There came a moment when he realized living to please others was exhausting. And worse, it was empty. For years, he had shaped his choices around what people expected: friends, family,
culture. But deep down, something was missing, something eternal. Then he encountered a different kind of fear, not the fear that cripples, but the fear that frees, the fear of God. In Scripture, the fear of the Lord isn't terror, it's reverence, awe, surrender. It means living with your heart aligned to something higher than public opinion, to the will of God Himself. In John 5:41 through 44, Jesus says, "I do not accept glory from human beings. How can you believe when you accept glory from one another and do not seek the glory that comes from God?" That truth hit him deeply. When your life is built on pleasing others, faith begins to fade. You lose sight of who you really are. But when you seek God's glory above man's approval, you step into real peace. Galatians 1:10 echoes the same. If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. To fear God is to live with eternal perspective. It's not about perfection, it's about conviction, about aligning your life with truth, not trends. And in that shift, something powerful happens. You stop reacting. You start living on purpose. You stop chasing applause. You start walking in calling. Because freedom doesn't come from escaping fear. It comes from fearing the right thing.
Masculinity, purpose, and virtue. Masculinity today is misunderstood. Culture either paints it as aggressive dominance or soft passivity, but neither version reflects true strength. For a long time, he tried to be the nice guy, always agreeable, always accommodating, hoping that if he pleased everyone, he'd feel whole. But deep inside, he was lost. The truth? He wasn't living by conviction, he was performing for approval. Real masculinity isn't about being loud or dominant. It's not about impressing others. It's about virtue, strength rooted in character. A virtuous man lives with purpose. He acts with integrity, not ego. He serves not to be seen, but because it's right. He chooses self-control over impulse, discipline over comfort, sacrifice over self-interest. The Bible doesn't just call women to be virtuous. In Proverbs 31, while the virtuous woman is praised, it's also clear that a man of virtue is one who can be trusted, a man of strength, honor, and wisdom. For him, the shift came when he stopped trying to look like a man and started becoming one. Not by culture standards, but by God's. A true man isn't afraid of struggle. He embraces responsibility. He doesn't seek fame, he seeks faithfulness. And that kind of purpose, it brings a peace and clarity the world can't offer. Because when a man knows who he is and why he's here, the noise of the world no longer defines him. Faith, the body, and the temple. There was a time when he focused solely on his spiritual life, prayer, reading, reflection, but he neglected his body. He saw them as separate worlds. Until one day, it clicked. The physical and the spiritual are deeply connected. 1 Corinthians 6:19 says, "Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit." That's not poetry, that's reality. The body isn't just a shell, it's sacred, a vessel for purpose. He realized that by ignoring his health, by skipping rest, eating poorly, staying inactive, he was quietly weakening his spirit too. Because when the body is depleted, the mind loses focus, and when the mind is tired, the soul struggles to stay awake. So he made a shift. Movement became worship. Nutrition became discipline. Rest became obedience. Caring for the body wasn't about appearance. It became an act of reverence, honoring the God who created it. And in that process, he found clarity, strength, presence. He began to see that spiritual growth isn't just about theology, it's about lifestyle. He also discovered the power of stillness, moments of solitude with God, away from distraction, moments where the heart settles, the mind clears, and the spirit listens. In that stillness, transformation began. If you feel disconnected from your purpose or from God, maybe it's time to return to the body, to honor it, to steward it, because when the body is aligned, the soul has space to breathe.
Be careful with the stimuli, media, culture, and the mind. Every day, from the moment we wake up, the world bombards us. Images, sounds, headlines, opinions. It's nonstop. And most of it, it's not helping us grow. He began to notice how easy it was to get pulled into digital habits, scrolling endlessly, consuming empty content, chasing quick stimulation. And with each click, his mind grew more distracted, and his soul more restless. Behind it all is dopamine, the same brain chemical tied to pleasure. The more we feed it with instant gratification through social media, porn, hypersexualized content, fast entertainment, the more numb we become to things that really matter. Science explains this using two systems. System 1 is fast, impulsive, driven by reaction. System 2 is slower, thoughtful, built for deeper decisions. Our culture is training us to live in System 1, to react, to scroll, to escape. But growth, real, lasting transformation, happens in System 2. When we pause, when we reflect, when we ask hard questions like, is this helping me become who I'm meant to be? He started asking himself, what am I feeding my mind? What's shaping my thoughts, my values, my desires? And the truth was sobering. Much of what he consumed wasn't just a distraction, it was forming his identity, little by little. So he made a choice. To take back control, to be intentional with what entered his mind, to treat his attention as sacred. Because if you don't guard your mind, the world will gladly shape it for you. And if you want a life of purpose, that's a cost too high to pay.
Breaking emotional and family patterns. Some of the hardest battles we fight don't begin with us. They are inherited. He began to see it. Patterns of fear, shame, perfectionism, things that didn't start in him but lived through him, passed down like invisible baggage from generation to generation. Maybe you've felt it too, that subtle pressure to meet expectations that were never really yours, to live up to a version of success, faith, or identity shaped by others, sometimes even by family. For years, he tried to earn approval, to live in a way that made others, especially parents, proud. But eventually, he had to face a hard truth. He couldn't become who God called him to be if he was still chained to who others needed him to be. Breaking generational cycles is painful. It requires clarity, boundaries, sometimes even distance. But it's the only way forward. He learned this: you will never break a curse by trying to please the one who placed it on you. And it doesn't mean dishonor, it means honesty. It means choosing obedience to God over obligation to history. You are not responsible for the choices others made. You are not required to carry their wounds, and you are not doomed to repeat their patterns. He stopped asking for permission to grow. He stopped waiting for validation to change. And in that, he found freedom, not rebellion, but redemption. You weren't created to live under someone else's story. You were created to walk in your own, led by the one who knows you fully.
Living a Christ-centered life in the everyday. He used to think following Jesus meant checking religious boxes, going to church, avoiding bad behavior, trying to be good. But over time, something changed. He stopped seeing faith as religion and started living it as a relationship. The life of Jesus wasn't just moral, it was missional. Every word, every decision, every sacrifice was rooted in a deep connection with the Father, and that's what he invites us into. Jesus didn't come to build routines. He came to lead a revolution of the heart, one that touches every part of daily life. So now he asks a simple question, every day in every decision. What would Christ do here? Not as a cliché, but as a compass. What would Christ do in conflict, in temptation, in disappointment, in moments where recognition is tempting or compromise is easy? And every time he asks that question, he finds clarity. Because Christ didn't live for applause, he lived for purpose. He didn't chase comfort, he chose obedience. He served when no one was watching. He loved those who didn't deserve it. He trusted God in the middle of suffering, and he never lost sight of why he was here. That's what it means to live a Christ-centered life. Not to be perfect, but to be purposeful. To let faith guide not just Sunday mornings, but Monday mornings, late nights, quiet decisions, and private battles. And the more he walked in that way, the more peace he found. Because when your life reflects the heart of Jesus, you don't need to force confidence. It becomes who you are.
If you've made it this far, it probably means something inside you has been stirred. Maybe a truth was uncovered. Maybe a weight was named. Maybe, just maybe, you're ready for change. And here's the truth. Real courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to walk forward in spite of it. Not alone, but with God. He discovered that strength doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from surrender. From choosing to trust that when God walks with you, no storm has the final word. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step. If something in this message resonated with you, don't ignore it. That conviction you feel, that quiet pull in your chest, that could be God inviting you into something deeper. Maybe it's time to get serious about your growth, to join a community, to seek mentorship, to walk this journey with intention, because transformation doesn't happen by accident. It happens by decision. If you're ready to walk in purpose, to stop living for the world and start living from the heart of God, this is your moment. And no, you're not alone. He's with you, and so are we. So don't wait for everything to feel perfect. Take the first step, boldly, faithfully, right now. If this message spoke to you, like it, share it, and don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to Human OS for more truth, clarity, and purpose. We're just getting started.